time for the best coverage of the top stories in sports. The Sports Wrap with Jason Page starts now.
Yes, it does on a Friday, and thank you, Chad Erickson. A lot to do over the next 60 minutes. Getting you ready for the weekend. It's a huge college football weekend, too. I almost forgot about that in the midst of all the splendor that was the NFL on Thursday night. We got a good one for Al Michaels last night. We're happy about that. The games we are watching in the NFL in Week 14, that is coming up. Robert Littal in his weekly spot talking about the top stories of the week. An interesting potential hire at the University of North Carolina for football. We will talk about that as well. Page versus the Prince and a whole bunch more. First, we say hello to Sam Yarnell for the first time today on the show. Wow, that was a fun game, huh? Packers and Lions. What's the problem? This was a good football game. Come on, this was an entertaining game to watch. There's no getting around that.
This game was terrible. What are you talking about? This game had so much potential with like 5 minutes to go in the second quarter, and it looked like a rocket ship just ready to take off. And then these two teams came out of the locker room, and it was like it was two completely different teams, Jason Page. I was excited about this game for like maybe 7 minutes of game time total. This to me was like, the score is so much different than the way this game played out. This was a clunker to me.
I thought the whole second half was great. From the time the Packers come out of the locker room and march down the field and score down, 17-7 at the half, to me, that was, I don't know. I thought that just set the whole second half in motion. It was a great game. But the Packers come up short on a night where, again, the Lions are, as much as we're going to talk about the Dan Campbell stuff, and we will talk about the Dan Campbell stuff, as much as we want to talk about that, the Packers went in against a depleted Lions team and still couldn't figure out a way to win that football game. There's no escaping that. As much as we want to say, hey, Jordan Love played great, and he did. As much as we want to say this was an exciting game, we can't. But at the end of all of this, it has to come down to, can we find a scenario, or can we dig up a scenario where we feel like the Packers are able to beat the Lions in the postseason? And if this is as unhealthy as the Lions are going to be as we continue to approach the postseason, I think the answer is no. The Packers probably won't beat them if they meet up in the postseason. I do think it'll be an entertaining game, though. Speaking of entertaining, you have the decision by Dan Campbell late in this game to go for it on fourth down, well within field goal range. I thought it was a bad decision, but ultimately it gets rewarded as they get the first down on that play. What did you make of the decision by Campbell late?
Yeah, I got to start with the game first because, Jason, I'm not going to lie to you. My main takeaway after watching this game was the AFC is going to win the Super Bowl again this year. If this is the creme de la creme, and these are two of the 4 to 5, maybe even 3 best teams in the conference, and this is the performance they're putting on prime time in a division game, probably their biggest regular season game for either team to date this season. This is the performance they put on. This was horrible. Both of these teams showed you that they're not going to be able to win in the postseason, and here's why. We talk so much about the different things that really affect postseason games, but one thing that year in, year out, decade in, decade out wins you playoff football games is having a sizable running attack. A running attack that at any point you can turn to get you 4 to 5 yards in a pinch when you need it. Both of these teams last night against two subpar defenses battling tons of injuries ran the ball absolutely horribly. There's just an interesting exercise I wanted to do because each of the 3 main running backs in this game had one long run. If you take away each of their longest runs, David Montgomery averages 2.92 yards per carry. That's horrible. That's bottom of the league bad. That's replacement level bad. Jahmyr Gibbs, 1.64 yards per carry. The Detroit offensive line could not do anything against, again, a bad Green Bay defense. On the Green Bay side, it was also bad. I know Josh Jacobs had the 3 3 touchdowns and fantasy owners might be happy, but my goodness, that rushing attack looks more feeble than maybe any other in the league has to date this year. Josh Jacobs, 2.76 yards per carry. When you take away his longest run, these teams are not going to win playoff games. Dan Campbell's decision-making is another reason why the Lions will not win a substantial amount of playoff games. This is not a team that is going to win a Super Bowl. Listen, I get it. Right. Dan Campbell is one of the best coaches in terms of fourth down in his career, statistically and analytically. I understand people out here justifying the decision while Jason said it was the wrong one. I understand people waking up on Friday morning and justifying the decision. All of that said, that decision is what will cost you in the playoffs, because most of the time when your quarterback has an offensive line step on his foot as he's going to make a handoff, that play blows up in your face, and you got very lucky that in the biggest game of your regular season, it didn't last night.
Here's Dan Campbell post-game.
God! I told you you'd never forget this game. You will never forget this game. We don't have to talk about how tough we are. We don't have to talk about how resilient we are. We live it, man. We've been living it. Where's our defense at? Offense, that's the way to step up, man. That's the way to step up. There you go, Skip. Keep throwing up, whatever you're doing up there. That's the way to freaking lay it on the line. Guys, I'm so freaking proud of you, man. That's the way to show up. You talk about pressure, we live in pressure. That's where we freaking thrive. You did it again. You did it again. All right? It doesn't matter who's playing for us. It doesn't matter what's going on. You always find a way to win. That's what champions do. This is not happenstance, man. This doesn't just happen. This is
What?
Man. Hey, look, the players are going to love him. Players are going to love him, that's for sure. He's going to cost him a game in the postseason again, though, I can promise you. You can say all the stuff you want about the running game and all this and that. Here's the bottom line. They've won 11 games in a row. 11 games in a row. And not against cupcakes either. They've won 11 games in a row. I still think the biggest question is, at what point in the postseason is he going to make the wrong decision? Postseason games are notorious for being close. So there's going to be a lot of these situations like we saw late last night that he's going to face in the postseason, and at some point he's going to make the wrong decision. I hope it doesn't. It'd be a great story to see the Lions win a Super Bowl, but I have my doubts after last night. We're coming back with games to watch next. All right, coming up in 10 minutes, my man, Robert Littal, Black Sports Online founder. Talk about the top stories of the week. I'll be curious to see what he thought of that Lions. That Lions game, which has Sam in a wonderful mood today.
Tremendous, really.
Defense, where are you at? That's what I was asking the whole second half of that game. Defense, where are you at? Robert Littal is going to be in a great mood, by the way. His Ohio State Buckeyes, of which he is a graduate, poop in the bed last Saturday. I have to say poop in the bed. I can't say what I'd like to say. So he's going to be in a great mood to talk about that as well. All of that coming up, Sam. But it is Week 14 in the NFL. And something Sam and I like to do is kind of help guide you a little bit. If you're indecisive, if you've got the Sunday ticket package and you can watch any game, you can't watch them all at once. I mean, I guess you could, but it'd be kind of difficult. We want to help guide your decisions on what you're going to watch in Week 14 with a couple of games. Sam, what are you watching this weekend?
All right, Jason Page, let's start in the 1 o'clock window. And from me being mad about one NFC team to me being mad about another NFC team, my first game to watch is Panthers-Eagles. Why? This is a real test for the Eagles. Now, they saw what the Lions did on Thursday night, no doubt, because they had to be watching that game. If you're an Eagle, you're locked into everything the Lions do right now. And now they've got to go out against against the Carolina Panthers in Philadelphia in a huge trap spot, laying 13 points at home. And they're going to have to try and do something. They got to blow them out of the water if they want to remain in this conversation with the Lions as who's the best team in the NFC. Obviously, the Saquon Barkley rushing record thing comes into the conversation. How many does he pick up against the Panthers defense? Does the Panthers defense sell out against the run and try to beat this Eagles team? I'm very interested to see. I think that the britches have gotten a little too high on the Philadelphia bandwagon right now, and everyone's ready to crown Nick Sirianni as a top 5 coach in the league. Like he didn't get 2 coordinators fired less than a calendar year ago that he hired himself. I mean, come on, really? We're gonna act like this guy's a good coach? Come on, really? Come on. I'm gonna say it right now. It's not my Page versus the Prince. I like the Panthers. Give me the 13.5. But I'll be locked in the Eagles Panthers in the late window. I'm a homer. Bills Rams, of course. The Bills need this one. I mean,
so do the Rams. So do the Rams.
Right. I think that
NFC West.
If the Rams don't win this game, obviously this division is going to be wild until the last week of the season, Jason Page. But if the Rams don't win this game, it feels like they're kind of out of the conversation for the NFC West. This is going to be a dogfight. I think we get a lot of points in this game. I think that this game is going to be a lot of fun to watch in the late window. It's going to be like the one of the 3 that you're always thankful for at the end of the week.
All right. Sam's 2 games. All right, Sam. Where am I going for my 2 games to watch this week? Well, look no further than the Falcons and Vikings. We talked about it. I think the Falcons at like minus 35, minus 36 in point differential are frauds. I expected them by this point in the season to be a much better team than we saw at the start of the year when, look, you can make the argument there's growing pains this group with Kirk Cousins. They're trying to put it all together. And I just don't see it. I haven't seen it throughout this entire season, and I've watched a lot of Falcons games. I am concerned about the Falcons in this spot. Conversely, I'm not a believer in the Vikings. I still think the Vikings are a bit of fool's gold. I won't say as fool's gold as they were a couple of years ago when they lost to the Giants in the playoffs, something I predicted, by the way. But, and the reason I'll give them a little more credit this year as opposed to those 2 years ago, they're much better defensively. They are built around this defense, where a couple of years ago, they obviously weren't that kind of team. They were more of an offensive juggernaut with the previously mentioned Kirk Cousins. So I'm very intrigued by this Falcons-Vikings matchup this week. There's a few ways I could have gone with Game 2. I almost went Seahawks-Cardinals. And I'm saying it just because I do think that is a bit of a bonus because of how tight that NFC West is. So I think that's a game you certainly have to keep in mind if you're looking for a game to watch on Sunday. But Jets-Dolphins, so much intrigue. The Dolphins still fighting for their playoff lives in the AFC, trying to figure out a way to sort of run the table and give themselves a shot. And look, let's be honest about it. When he's been on the field this year, the numbers for Tua Tagovailoa are hard to deny. I mean, he's throwing it at like a 70% clip. He's playing well when he's on the field. So I think the Dolphins are still in a position where we could say they are contenders. We did contender-pretender on Tuesday, or on Thursday, for a potential playoff spot. The Jets, meanwhile, we've talked about it all week on the show, it feels like. Every day there's a different chapter and a different layer to this Aaron Rodgers saga. Is there a point where the team pulls him as the starter and sort of signals their readiness, their intention, their willingness to move on from him in this offseason? If that happens at some point this year, you'd have to believe he won't be back next season. And as Sam pointed out yesterday on the show, their commitment financially next year is almost nothing. So they have nothing to lose by cutting him after this year. This game could go a long way in determining sort of the nature of that story, with Rodgers right now barking back at the organization, saying they're not giving him enough support. Also saying, hey, I shouldn't have to prove myself if I want to come back and play for you in 2025. Almost daring Woody Johnson in this franchise to move on from him, which I think they will. So I think Jets-Dolphins is an interesting watch as well.
Yeah, so with the Dolphins, obviously the playoffs, like they're gonna have to win out, right? But it's interesting because as like the season has gone on, here's their schedule that they would like. It's kind of win out, and I think no, they'd still have to rely on other people to.
They're
going
gonna
to
need help from the Broncos. They're two back on the loss side.
Jets, Texans, Niners, Browns, Jets.
It's winnable. There's a lot of winnable games there, Sam.
I was gonna say, it's not the furthest thing in the world if you really wanted to take a leap, take a long jump, to bet on them to make the playoffs. I don't necessarily think that I would, but I could understand why people are running to the window if they are to do that right now.
Get them at 4-10 right now.
Real quick.
4-1 right now.
Yeah. I don't know. Tua has been so good because he's protecting the ball. That he's never done before.
We're coming back with Robert Littal, Black Sports Online founder. Top stories of the week with him are next. All right, we keep things moving on this Friday edition of SportsWrap. And if it's Friday on SportsWrap, that can only mean one thing. This guy, Robert Littal, is here, founder of Black Sports Online. I am shocked that you are actually wearing that shirt following the festivities from last weekend in Columbus. We'll get to that in a second. I'm blown away that you'd even wear that shirt, that you would want to be associated with that school after what happened last week. Just take a week off, that sort of thing is what I was thinking. But we'll get to that. There was another game played out there in the Midwest last night that was of some interest to people. Packers and Lions. I was texting you while I was watching. Look, I love the Lions story. It would be great for that city if they were able to win a Super Bowl. I think it would mean as much to that community in that city as just about any and all of the NFL. If you really think about it, what the city of Detroit has been going through over the last couple of decades, really, what it would mean for that city to have a Super Bowl team and a Super Bowl winner, and that franchise being the one to bring a championship to Detroit after so many years. But I watched Dan Campbell's coaching style, and man, it's fun. And it's, everybody said Dan Campbell being Dan Campbell, but I have my doubts as to whether or not you can win a Super Bowl where every game is close in the playoffs. There ain't a lot of blowouts in the playoffs. I have my doubts as to whether he's always going to push the right button when he's just so willing to go willy-nilly in these situations. What do you think?
Well, he does coach like he's playing Madden at times, no punt season.
Yeah.
But, I'm a little bit of a nerd, and statistically speaking, if it's 4th down and 1 or shorter, your chances of making it are normally better. And your percentages of winning the game are normally better if you go for it. I think it's a gift and a curse. It's a catch-22 situation. Anytime a coach makes any type of decision like that, especially when we get into the fourth quarter, it's either you're a genius or you're an idiot. Either you're too conservative or you went too crazy. You talked about Ohio State, clearly too conservative, last week. So I think he learned from what happened last year. I mean, he had a couple of situations last year where I think he pushed the envelope a little too much and kind of allowed, the 49ers to get back, into the game. The question is, when do you push it and when do you pull back? And I think he had a great learning experience last year, and that's going to carry over to this year, into the playoffs.
Well, he had one last night that was terrible, basically in his own 30, where he goes for it on 4th down. And the Packers get the ball and immediately march down the field and get a touchdown. And then he has the one last night late in the game where he goes for it and it winds up working out in his favor. I'm curious to see what you think about the Packers, though. Is this a team who seems to be knocking on the door? Jordan Love, you want to talk about an embarrassment of riches. And think about this for a second. To go from Brett Favre to Aaron Rodgers to Jordan Love. That is as good as you could get as an organization when it comes to just getting it right. when it comes to getting it right at the most important position in the game, they're basically going to have a run of 30 to 35 years.
Yeah, I'm sure other teams
a locked up quarterback position, right? Meanwhile, you've got the Jets who have gone 2 decades without anybody at quarterback.
Yeah, hopefully Jordan Love in 15 to 20 years don't get weird on us or steal from the poor. But from the field standpoint, you're exactly correct. I think, to answer your question, I think the Packers should win the Super Bowl. I really do. I think they're right there. I don't think the NFL, as we watch today, has a juggernaut. I don't consider the Lions a juggernaut, or the Chiefs or the Bills. I think it's literally any given Sunday. That's a game that the Packers could have easily won if a couple of things went their way. I think they are as good. They're going to have to go on the road. But I don't think it's unfathomable to believe that they can have a run and get hot at the end of the year and roll it all the way to New Orleans.
All right. Let's talk about a team that's not going to win a championship. All right, maybe they will. Ohio State. I mean, how are you feeling as a Buckeye? Which you are. So I think you are qualified to speak on this more than most. How are you feeling about what you saw last weekend against Michigan? What was your initial reaction?
I was devastated. I was devastated. I felt so bad. I'm like, people shouldn't be fans. People shouldn't be alumni because there's no reason to feel like this about a game. Just again. I mean, my whole day, was ruined. My family did not want to be, around me. I wanted everybody, fired and gone before, Thanksgiving. But I had a chance to calm down and to kind of come to my senses. Ryan Day has the yips whenever it comes to Michigan. I think that's pretty clear. Yeah. Thankfully, though, when it comes to every other team, he's not bad. And even good teams like, Georgia and Clemson, obviously Penn State, he's taking care of. He's beat Notre Dame a few times. Oregon, I mean, that's a game they probably should have won on the road. So it gives me hope that there's a potential playoff run that's still available. They have the most talent in the country if they put it all together. But I don't even know how I would feel if they were to win a national championship with that asterisk by that they lost to Michigan. I mean, I still party, but there'll still be something in my gut that won't feel right about it.
I got a minute left here in this segment with you. How do you feel about flag planting? Is this just going to be banned? Is this just going to be a situation where the NCAA says that's it, no more flag planting? You can't you can't have anything fun. That's it.
It'll probably be banned, but I'm for flag planting, the fights. I like it all. It's rivalry week. As long as nobody's using no knives and no guns, I feel like it's fine. That football players have on helmets and shoulder pads.
Well, pepper spray.
Nobody's gonna get hurt. Nobody's gonna get hurt. I mean, Michigan and Michigan State were fighting over nothing. So yeah, I'm for flag planting. I'm for like someone said, and I just ended on this. They said if you don't want somebody to plant your flag, don't lose. And if you don't want to get beat up, don't plant the flag.
Yeah, I agree. I don't know why you got cops out there pepper spraying these kids. It's just
that's the cops. Yeah. I mean, they don't need a reason.
Very true. That is Robert Littal, Black Sports Online founder, hanging out with us on the show. I've got more to get with him on the other side, including a couple items from the NBA, one involving LeBron James, one involving who could be the most disappointing. Yeah, Stephen A. Smith likes to say Kawhi Leonard is the most disappointing superstar. I got one that may top it next. All right, segment 4 on this Friday edition of Sports Wrap. We talked some football with Robert Littal, founder of Black Sports Online. Check out his work there. Now we talk some NBA. I was talking about it with Kurt Heelan on the show this week, the situation revolving around this Laker team and LeBron James blown out this week in Miami. Obviously, he's not 100% physically right now, it sounds like. There was this idea that he wanted to play 82 games this year, Robert. it feels like that is pretty far-fetched at this point, and they're going to have to sort of give up on this idea sooner rather than later, mostly because they're so reliant on him and Anthony Davis to provide the bulk of what they do offensively. It was a nice thought early on in the year when you had LeBron, putting up triple doubles, and it was all great. But now the reality sort of sets in. This just isn't feasible.
You know what a lot of people aren't talking about? First off, LeBron is old, and he's beat back Father Time for a very long period of time. But one of the reasons he's been able to beat back Father Time is he's actually had an off season where he puts all this money into his training and his body. No off season, he had to go to the Olympics. And he played a lot in the Olympics because he wanted to show that he was the best in the world. You see it with, Joel Embiid. Steph Curry's been dinged up, a lot this year. These guys that went over to the Olympics aren't having the greatest of starts. And none of them are 40, going on 40, years old, or 21 years in the league. The Lakers and LeBron have always had a problem. LeBron, it feels like he's always going to be LeBron. So they've never put him in the role that he should be, which at this point in his career should be like maybe the third or fourth, option. And Anthony Davis is we have to come to the conclusion that he's never going to be consistent. One day he's going to look like the best big man ever. The next he's going to look like, he's going to look like Michael Olin and Candy. and that's why you have such ups and downs, with the Lakers.
Wow, we got an Olo Candy reference into the show today. I did not have that on my bingo card. I'm when it comes to the LeBron stuff, it's such a fine line for this organization in celebrating him, making sure you have him out on the court, sort of letting him have free reign, because that's the way it's been for so many years, where LeBron kind of calls his own shots, but balancing that with trying to compete in a Western Conference that's just so stacked.
Yeah, it's they had the same situation, with Kobe towards the end, where, and it wasn't as bad as it is now, but they knew they weren't going to be competitive, but it's Kobe Bryant. And I think they're coming to the realization that, however many years LeBron is going to hang on for, unless, they make some sort of really major, trade where he's not the man. I mean, unless they bring in someone like Giannis, somebody like that, they're going to be kind of stuck in this mediocrity. And you can look at the Western Conference right now. They're not beating, they're not going to the finals where against any of these. And these teams are young and they're only getting better. So what is San Antonio and Houston and Oklahoma City and the Memphis and the T-Wolves? What are y'all going to look? They're going to even better next year, the year after that. So it's like, what do you do? Do you just ride it out for nostalgia and tickets, or do you try to make a move? But I don't see any move out there, like you said, because of the way LeBron is, that really would facilitate they're making this big, push. You would literally have to get rid of Anthony Davis and get 5 players or something like that to kind of spread out the wealth, kind of like how Cleveland is set up. But I don't see the Lakers, doing something like that.
Let me ask you, when it comes to a guy like Zion Williamson, is it the Grant Hill syndrome of just being snake bitten with injuries? Is it, just a guy that has a chronically bad hamstring? Or is it a situation where this guy just isn't taking care of himself and doing the things you need to do to be a professional athlete?
I remember talking to an NBA player once that told me that he really didn't like playing basketball. And I said,
wow.
Why are you playing in the NBA? Why are you playing bad if you don't really like it? And he said, because I'm tall. And then that's, I was good at it. So I played it. And now, I've made a lot of money. And, I've set my family up for life, but I don't particularly enjoy playing the game. Some guys have a burning desire to be great. Some guys are just blessed with athletic ability to take them to certain levels that you and I, normal people, could never go. And that, to me, that's Zion Williamson. I think he was just blessed with this gift. And he's gotten to the NBA where everybody's blessed with a gift, and he's showing that he doesn't have the same type of passion, for the sport like us. We just talked about, LeBron. Whatever you want to say about LeBron, he has a passion to be in this for 22 years and take care of his body and do the right things. You know, you see Steph Curry, you see these guys that have a passion, a Jokic, you know, you think he doesn't care about it, but he's out there working out after every game and working on his game every year. You don't see that with Zion Williamson. Some guys just don't have it, and he's one of those guys.
Even a change of scenery, a different coach, a different voice, somebody to get through to him. You don't think there's anything that could sort of flip this narrative?
Now, I don't think a different city's going to change him putting down the Doritos. You know, I mean, I've seen he looks like us. You know, like, you know, we always say that, you know, that people say, well, look at you, you're not a professional. Or look how you, when you say something about a professional athlete, how they look or whatever, they say, well, look at you. Well, yeah, we're sports reporters. You know, there's no physical requirement. I mean, we're both handsome, you know, but there's no physical requirement for sports reporters. So I feel, I mean, maybe a change of scenery, maybe somebody kicks him in the butt. I think he'll never live up to the potential of what we see as a franchise player. He'll never be a LeBron. He'll never be a Jokic. He'll never be a Giannis, that type of guy.
You're handsome. Me, not so much. I just get by.
You're
handsome.
Stop it.
We got to go. Robert, I always appreciate it, my friend.
Yeah, no problem.
All right. Something to consider for this Friday on SportsWrap. With odds and ends, Page versus the Prince right around the corner. Week 14 NFL picks for you. By the way, speaking of Week 14 NFL picks, not to go far afield here, Sam, how'd you do last night?
2-2, but everything was plus money, so we made money.
Okay. Nothing wrong with that.
Amon-Ra St. Brown, not like really. We keyed Amon-Ra St. Brown and nothing, but we made it with the Jahmyr Gibbs longest rush and the Detroit team total.
Okay. Fair enough. Something to consider, Sam Yarnell. A couple of items for your consideration today. I keep having an alarm go off here in the studio. I apologize if anybody could hear that. I'm a pro, though. I really am. So, something to consider, Sam Yarnell. Bill Belichick is the head coach at North Carolina. Not the Carolina Panthers. No. The University of North Carolina. Look, let me give my theory. I think this is just him blowing smoke. I think it's him trying to say to NFL teams, hey, if you don't come and if somebody doesn't make it known they want me, I'm going to look at something else. I don't see any way he goes and does something with North Carolina prior to this NFL offseason, knowing there's probably going to be upwards of 9 or 10 jobs open. I mean, this could be the biggest vacancy fill that we've ever seen in the NFL. Certainly could be one of them. I think 12 is the record in an offseason. But there's talk this could be a 10 vacancy offseason. I don't see any way that he says, yeah, I'm going to go coach the University of North Carolina, have to deal with the recruiting headaches, NIL. If you're going to coach in the pros, you might as well coach in the NFL. I just don't see him. I don't see him going to North Carolina. I don't know. I can't really understand what this is about ultimately.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think it's just kind of a ploy to try and get NFL teams to bite on him. Listen, those of you in the college football understand the circumstances around North Carolina football and understand that, like, of all the places Bill Belichick could go, the weirdest possible outcome, obviously a team that just fired Mac Brown, or I guess mutually parted ways with Mac Brown, an all-time great in terms of college coaching and college football. And they're also, oh, by the way, about to lose their best, and some may argue only good, player in Omarion Hampton to the NFL draft, who was their running back, who was one of the best running backs in the country. I mean, the kid was spectacular. People thought he was going to be good before the year started, and he was better than people imagined. So he probably will end up going in the, I would imagine, second to third round, maybe late first. We'll see. The kid's super talented. He's gone. So what is Bill Belichick going into? a nothing burger, like a team where he will have to recruit everyone himself, and like, yeah, like we talked
73
about
years old. Yeah, 73 years old. I can see him out in people's living rooms trying to get their kid to come play there. Come on.
It's like what we talked about with Bill Bender, right? With the Ohio State opening earlier this week, or I guess foreseen opening, because people have already as good as fired Ryan Day from that job. Like, as much as it makes sense, and you and I in later conversations, Jason, said that, like, yeah, the recruiting for one of these big names, a Mike Vrabel, that comes in from the NFL becomes that much easier. At the same time, that doesn't mean they want to do it. That doesn't mean it's an action that they want to partake in, especially voluntarily, when theoretically there are NFL teams knocking on the door. So to me, Jason, at the end of the day, this all is just Bill Belichick trying to keep his name in the media, trying to continue in circles, get a little bit of good press before he gets back into the coaching cycle.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. John Summerall of Tulane still seems to be the top choice for North Carolina ultimately when it comes to that opening. Lionel Messi making news. He is your MLS MVP. I have to admit, his first year in the league, or his first half year in the league, I kind of followed and watched what he was doing. The appeal wore off for me in year two, though. I wasn't really looking every day to see what Messi was doing to lead that Inter Miami team, who wound up losing in the first round of the playoffs, if I'm not mistaken. They went out early. But Messi, your MVP at this late stage of his career. Sam, what does it say about MLS that Messi, this version of him this late in his career, is able to win an MVP in that league?
It says, Jason, that he didn't deserve it. I'm sorry.
Wow.
But this was a popularity award handed out to the greatest footballer of all time. Don't get me wrong. He has 100% earned it maybe in the last 20 years. But like this year, it should have been Christian Benteke of DC United. It's a head scratcher to me. And I get that, Messi didn't play. The thing is, he played 19 games.
19 matches, 20 goals.
Yeah, he played 19 games. How are you going to give the MVP to a guy who played 19 games?
16 appearances.
I just don't get it. And I think that the greater conversation has to evolve from it that, like, what have MVP awards in sports, across sports, become, right? Like, I don't know. It's tough.
It was close, though, the voting. 38.43% of the votes for Messi, 33.7% of the votes for Benteke. So, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, listen, he was the league's leading goal scorer. He was a difference maker on that DC United starting 11. I thought Christian Benteke was going to be your guy, but, I'm not saying that it's wrong, right? Like, I get it. He is an all-time great that came and literally blessed your league with his presence. There's value in that.
Page versus the Prince. Week 14 NFL picks wraps it up next. All right, it's just about time to put the wraps on this baby for a Friday. Don't forget, SportsWrap weekends available on many of these same affiliates. And if it's not, well, then you got to look around for it. What can I tell you? Call your station, say I want SportsWrap weekends. It's a tidy little bow around everything we talked about this week. Matter of fact, we'll have a conversation on there this week that was not on the show during the week with Nick Ferguson, former Broncos safety. I did an extended conversation with him about the Broncos and this unlikely run that they're making towards a postseason berth. So we'll have that coming up, my conversation with Nick on that. Before we get to Page versus the Prince, Sam Yarnell, Las Vegas A's made news, overcoming more of the red tape that goes with them becoming a team in Las Vegas that will start playing in 2028. A lot more funding freed up. A lot more of the legislative side of it is done. It looks like the A's will begin playing in 2028, provided John Fisher comes up with the funding that he has promised he can come up with, because he doesn't have it yet. This is all basically being done on a promise, Sam. It's basically being done on a promise.
Yes, Jason, provided that a man who has quite literally never kept a promise throughout his tenure with the A's keeps his first career ever. But hey, this one will make him a lot more money, so maybe he actually will follow through this time. Because we know that guy's only interested in himself.
30,000 seat. Yeah, I know. 30,000 seat stadium. With capacity of 34, I guess, with some standing room only stuff.
Wait, what?
Yes, it's gonna be a small stadium.
That's the size of their stadium?
Yes. Yeah.
That's tiny. Yeah. They're building a new stadium and it's only gonna hold 35,000 people?
I don't know what to tell you.
It's Friday, and that means it's time for the weekly face-off for sports betting bragging rights. It's Paige versus the Prince on the Sports Wrap.
Sam. Yes. But hey, they're going to have like special air-conditioned seats in the stadium.
Season tickets to Las Vegas A's are going to cost you $35,000 a year. I hope you're ready for that.
I got to be honest, it's one of the few things that's keeping me the idea of staying in Las Vegas and living here is the fact that there's going to be a Major League Baseball team literally 15 minutes from where I live.
Yeah, and the only guys who are going to be in the seats are the guys who own the casinos rather than the people who attend them.
By the way, huge signing for the A's, Luis Severino. Biggest deal in history.
Money
yes,
in A's history.
I know.
$37 million.
For 3 years. And literally David Ardsma and I on the show yesterday were just saying, I wouldn't give him 3 years. And then the A's, literally after we finished putting the show to bed, signed him to a 3-year deal. Go ahead, Sam. Give me your picks for this week.
To blow up in his face.
Go ahead.
All right. Because of Jason Sean McDermott like clock management, I must fly through these now. We'll start with the Jags and the Titans. We'll go under. Titans defense is good. Jags offense is bad. I don't think Mac Jones is very good. I can't wait for this one to blow up in my face. Under 39.5 Jaguars Titans. Panthers Eagles over 45.5. I said I like the dog. I think I like them to win. I think this is a 27-24 game. I think the Panthers might get it done. Give me the Panthers Eagles over 45.5. Falcons Vikings, the Jason Page special, over. Listen, Kirk Cousins in a bounce back spot. I think he throws for like 600 yards in this game. Not saying they'll win, just saying he'll throw for a lot in the revenge game. And then, we know what this Vikings offense is. The defense is special, but I do think we got points in this game. Over 46.5. Falcons Vikings. And finally, Bears Niners under 44.5. Bears defense is okay. Niners offense doesn't have anybody left. Bears offense is in a weird spot. Niners defense also doesn't have anybody left. Under 39.5 Jags Titans, over 45.5 Panthers Eagles, over 46.5 Falcons Vikings, under 44.5 Bears 49ers. My card for week 14.
By the way, it's no longer Sean McDermott like clock management. It's Matt Eberflus like clock management. Let's be honest. Browns and Steelers is my first game. Give me over 43.5. I mean, it's guaranteed that Jameis Winston will throw at least 4 touchdowns in this game. Half of them will be to the Steelers. Give me the over 43.5 with the Browns and Steelers. Jaguars Titans. I actually like the Titans minus 3.5 here. I think this is a missed number. We've seen what the Jaguars are with Mac Jones, and it's really, really bad. I think the Titans at home minus 3.5 is a lock. Jets Dolphins. I mean, how can you bet on the Jets ever right now? Give me the Dolphins, minus 5.5. I mean, as long as Tua is on the field and healthy at home against this Jets team that's mailed it in, I'll take the Dolphins minus 5.5. Last but not least, Bears and 49ers. Look, Niners in a must-win here. And I know they lost Jordan Mason. I know they lost Christian McCaffrey. And I know they're dealing with injuries everywhere. But minus 3.5 at home, I think they got just enough in this game to get across the finish line and get a W and keep themselves in the mix in the NFC West. So for me, it's the Browns and Steelers over 43.5. Jaguars, Titans, give me the Titans minus 3.5. Dolphins minus 5.5. And Bears, Vikings, I'll take, or Bears, 49ers minus 3.5. My picks for this week, Page versus the Prince. That's how we wrap up the show, Sam Yarnell.
You put that all together, it pays 147 to 1 if we go 8-0 this week.
Sign me up! It's going to wrap it up for us. I might just do that now. Thanks, Robert Littal. Thanks to you, Sam Yarnell. Thanks to you for watching all week long. We'll see you back here next week. Have a great weekend.